Hello everybody and welcome back to Operation Logistics, where interhex pathfinding is now working, but we need to work on optimizing it a little bit. It's exponentially slow over longer distances. So one thing I was thinking about maybe doing when we left off last time was maybe changing this from the Manhattan distance into like square magnitude, but upon further reflection, I don't think that's the way to go. The first thing I want to do is I want to make absolutely certain that our get entry cost when jumping from world hex to world hex returns 1 rather than 1 million. Because the first thing we have to remember is simply that it has to check every single hex in the world hex before it can jump to the next world hex, just because of the way that this is set up. So I think the first things that we're going to do is we're going to run a quick check here. If, let's see here, from building and to building will have different world hexes, if this is true. So if from building dot location dot world hex is not equal to location dot world hex, then we'll simply just return 1. Because we know for a fact that all connections are going to be on roads. So that should work just fine. I don't know if that's going to, and actually this should return 1F. I don't know if that's going to increase the speed of this substantially, but hopefully. I didn't even wait in the last episode to see how long it was going to be. I just closed it with Task Manager and called it a day. So, I mean, ultimately, the question then becomes, how fast do we need this to be? Well, a whole lot faster than taking 5 minutes, that's for sure. Now, I don't think that this is going to speed it up too substantially. Actually, it should speed it up quite substantially. So let's grab ourselves a bit of a large landmass, like this one here. Come on, there we go. In we go. And why are we getting some frame drops on the recording in this? That's odd. Should not be happening. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, this is the same thing that's happening in StarCraft. Fascinating. Anyway, I'll check it after this episode. Let's go ahead and purchase ourselves, say this X here. That should do fine. We will then demolish this guy, create route here, select the route. We're going to go ahead and zoom on out, and we're going to travel, say, here. So we're going to go into edit route mode, and this is at 3:25 on the timer. So right now. Okay. We'll just see how long that ends up taking. It's still unacceptably slow. We can tell that for sure. So one thing I'm gonna do is I think I'm just going to, do I want to split this screen? Sure, I guess that'll work. We'll be able to see when this catches back up. And in the meantime, let's just take a quick look here. So the get entry costs here should be reasonably fast. Let's check in the pathfinding itself. Get building hex position from location and to location. How fast is that? Go to implementation. So we do get biome hex position. So we do get world hex position. That's get nearest world hex. Get world hex position. Get world hex by index, index.transform.position. So that should be reasonably fast. And then the biome hex position is just the offset off of that. And the building hex position is just the offset off of that. So that should be reasonably quick. Let's see here. Because, I mean, at this point, we're up almost 2 minutes for this pathfinding, which, as I said before, is just unacceptable. Maybe what we need to do is we need to do this on several different levels and then run several paths. That should allow us to eliminate a whole lot of hexes a lot faster, right? Okay, so essentially what I'm saying is, what if we were to run the pathfind as it is if we're inside of the same world hex and the same biome hex? Then, if we are not inside the same biome hex, well, if we're not inside the same world hex, then we would run the pathfinding on a world hex level. So we'd need our world hexes and our biome hexes to have a list of neighbors. Essentially. But if we run it on a world hex level, then we'd find out what world hexes we're going to, and then we'd check the biome hexes inside of those and pathfind that way. And then, once we know the biome hexes, we could then pathfind the world hexes, or the building hexes, at that point, and eliminate a whole lot of options. Because this is still unacceptably slow. There's no doubt about that. So I'm going to go ahead and close Unity Editor here. And we are going to fire it back up. And in we go. So essentially, if I pause this and play it, pause it on the first frame here, what I'm saying is, if we're traveling from, say, here to here, it would first pathfind these hexes, and then these would be the only ones we would consider. And then we'd do the biome hexes the same way, and then that would be the only biome hexes we consider as we do our building hexes. That should theoretically be substantially faster, right? Doing essentially 3-tiered pathfinding. The main problem with that is we would need to put in adjacencies for our biome hexes, which would need to be in the hex store. That said... Okay, do we have adjacencies in the world hex already? I don't believe we do. No, we do not. Okay, so we can create those on like a second pass. We would do a public list world hex neighbors equals new list world hex. Realistically, we would only want there to be like 6 in total, but this is fine. And then in our pathfinding, we would want to rename this to... Actually, no, we would leave it basically where it's at. It returns a vector 3, which we would have to convert. Let's go ahead and rename this. Pathfind building to vector 3. Okay. And then we're going to need 2 more pathfinding functions here. So public static list world hex, pathfind in world hexes, and this is going to be world hex from world hex to. Are we going to need the hex manager? I doubt we're going to need the hex manager for this. Out of curiosity, why do we have the hex manager here? Oh, because we need it for get distance. Right. That makes sense. Okay. So we're going to do basically the same exact thing that we did here, except we are going to not have the get entry cost. The G is just going to be 1 at all times for the world hex and biome hex. We're going to need another method here, public static list biome hex. Right? Do we want to return a biome hex? I feel like we don't. I feel like we want this to be an int3. Pathfind in biome hexes. int3 from int3 2. And then we would say the building component of this int3 is ignored. Okay, like that. And then we'd need to retool this building to vector 3 a little bit. Perhaps rather than passing in the hex manager, we'd want to pass in a list, the biome hexes. Yeah, this is going to be interesting, to be sure. But we can certainly eliminate a lot of the possibilities by doing it this way. So I think the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that the world hex has itself its manager, or has itself its neighbors. Do we want to grab the neighbors by an overlap sphere? Maybe? This would absolutely have to be in a second pass. Do we have a second pass going in? Let's see here. We create this. Where is our awake? Right here. We create height, we create urban, so we do already have a second pass. But we can just simply create neighbors. Like so. And then when we do our create height and our create urban, which are down this direction, we can do create neighbors. Public void create neighbors. Like so. And that currently doesn't do anything. But we should then iterate through everything in the map. So ultimately, I want to copy this and place this in here. And we're going to need a few more curly braces. There we go. So we iterate through the entire map. And then the question is, what size of overlap sphere do we need? And I need to check in here. We're not going to be able to run this, unfortunately, but I need to check in our prefabs. The mesh collider is on the same object that world hex is on. Excellent. Okay. So let's go ahead and then do something along the... Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, remove the capsule collider. That'll save a little bit of memory. And then here we need to go ahead and do a overlap sphere of a particular size, and that size should be what? That size should be about a radius of 2, right? A radius of 2 would reach to what, here? Yeah. So a radius of 1, actually. So, at this point, we should go ahead and do something along the lines of collider. We'll call this potential neighbors equals physics.overlap. Do we want a box or a sphere? I think a sphere will be slightly easier to set up. So we do an overlap sphere at transform, or actually at map I j dot transform dot position, and then the radius would, I believe, simply be 1f, right? Because we've got this, so that would go to here, so that would reach here, that would reach here, it would not reach here, which is theoretically correct. Okay. Seems good. In the pathfinding, for now, I'm just going to return null for these. Return null. Okay. Just so that we can actually run this, because we need to check and make sure that our adjacency is actually working. So these are our potential neighbors here. For each collider col in potential neighbors, we need to run a couple of checks here. So if, let's see, these are on the world hex tag. So if col.gameObject.tag equals world hex, then we're interested in it. Yep, there's no space there. So if it equals world hex, then we're interested in it. But we also need it to be not equal to this. So we only want to run this if it's equal to world hex. So we'll go ahead and do world hex equals col dot get component of type world hex. It's going to be a little slow, but that's okay. We're calling this only at the startup. It'll add a little bit of time, but it won't be that much, realistically. So we'll grab that component, and then we will go ahead and make sure that that's not equal to this. So if hex is not equal to this, then at that point we know that this is a valid neighbor, assuming that we are correct on the radius. So we've got our, no, this is hex manager. In the world hex, we've got our list of neighbors, so we can then say, oh wait, if hex is not equal to this, no, if hex is not equal to map ij is what we want. I'm in hex manager, not world hex. Okay, so if hex is not equal to map ij, then we are going to need to go ahead and place that into map ij.neighbors via the .add command, and we'll just add in hex. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and play this and let this run, but it is time to put a cut in, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we will be back once the game is loaded. See you all then.